they make you laugh, if they make you cry, if they blow your mind, why not go online to grimerica.ca/support.
And that would force Congress to say, look, they're all there. We got to call. Hey, guys, hey, send your delegates if you want. This is the date. You don't have to participate, but we got a ministerial duty. We just found out we got to do it.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show. We are going to be chatting with John DeHerrera a little bit later. Fun chat. A little all over the place at times, but it's a good one. It's a fun one. And we got everybody's favorite podcaster here. Graham, I'm ready for the heat wave Dunlop.
Yeah, buddy.
Are you ready for the heat wave?
Yeah,
You're
sure.
glistening.
I'm a little disappointed at the heat wave, to be honest with you. I mean, hey, before we forget, I want to get there, but before
Doesn't
we
really
forget,
start till tomorrow.
Before we forget, it sure doesn't feel like it.
I know. This is just pre-heat wave, though.
There's a cyclical internet interruption in this episode.
It's going to be 20% hotter than this.
So just be aware that there is an internet interruption. There's not really much we could do about it at the time, but he slows down every like 10 minutes or so. There's like a little bit of a hiccup. So just keep that in mind. It's a little challenging. The audio might be a little suspect. I'm sure Darren will
for the internet.
But it was a fun chat. But where's I'm wondering where all the contrails are, though. And there's no haze. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of pics of blue sky.
It's too hot.
I'm wondering dude, it's not, don't tell me that.
It's not too hot.
There can always be contrails.
Did you notice that you could see the energy place the one day and you couldn't see it the next day as soon as it got hot? Guaranteed you can't see it today.
Yeah.
Unless they're turning it on and off.
Yeah, they might be. Yeah, they are.
Wouldn't it be on when everyone's got their air conditioner on?
I don't know. Is that what that is? Is that an energy plant?
Yes.
Is that what that is? Directly for our city? You don't know if it's actually powering our city.
I don't know what it's powering.
So anyways, I mean, the thing is, I've seen a lot of pics from Vancouver and stuff, a lot of pics, blue sky, there's no haze, but sometimes, you get those planes flying over and then the next thing you know, it's hazy, and is that cooling it down maybe? I mean, it's just disappointing that after the lockdowns, we're going through the hottest, we're breaking records for heat apparently in BC and Alberta anyways. And they're just going to blame us. There's going to be rolling climate lockdowns coming out.
When I was a kid, some good hot weather wasn't a bad thing.
I loved it.
Down to the beach.
Oh,
the
yeah.
kids are having a blast.
Loved it. Yeah.
Playing in the sprinkler.
I like it now. I do. Yeah.
As long as you have a place to cool down.
Yep.
I have my air-conditioned little abode upstairs I can retreat to as I get too warm. I can bring my laptop up there, do stuff if I do see so fit. Hasn't got that hot yet. It might this week.
So
I was thinking we'll take the boat out swimming.
And on the lake, or?
I wouldn't go here. I'd just drive down to Travers. It's worth the hour and a half drive just to not have to deal with all the people.
Yeah. Cold. It's probably a colder lake, too.
Much colder.
Yeah.
Especially down to that south end. The only problem on the south end is you can't drop the anchor, so someone's going to stay in the boat at all times.
Why?
So it doesn't blow away on you if the wind picks up.
Well, you could swim to it, can't you?
If the wind picks up, the boat will be gone.
No.
Oh, yeah. You're not catching that little skiff.
What?
The wind
Really?
starts. Oh, yeah.
Do you know how to swim, bro?
Yeah, I know how to swim. I'm a very good swimmer.
I'm called the egg beater.
Dude, I bet you're going to fucking half drown if I get you in the water. Dude, Mr. Egg Beater. You're the egg beater because you're just fucking thrashing around and not going anyplace.
It was treading water that gave me that name, so you're right.
A boat will move pretty quick across the water with that waves.
It is pretty windy down there.
Man. It'll be gone. And now you're swimming a quarter
I'd
mile.
I'd love to go swimming in a lake, in a cold lake, fresh lake, not like the one right here. It feels like.
I might go down next weekend. Go down, do some swimming, do some fishing, then shoot a deer.
Wow.
later in the night.
Yeah.
When it cools right off.
Yeah.
So I think the heat wave is supposed to end the next week. Big prime time, the animals start coming back out. Miles, ready to take down his first game.
Nice.
I'm going to take him out. He's going to take a shot at it.
Right on. Good. Awesome.
Yeah, so what do you got for us? What have you been doing?
Geez, I got some quotes from an upcoming book and an interview for Grimerica Outlawed with Bruce de Torres. God, School, 9/11, and JFK, the lies that are killing us and the truth that sets us free. If you want me to read some quotes out of that book now, or I also got a sort of for the Operation Project segment, I got that thing that you sent me about the UFOs.
Oh, I didn't send you that for the show. I sent
What?
you that because it's a giant nothing burger.
Well, no, it's not. Darren, for people that aren't involved in all this and that don't care about UFOs, this is disclosure. This is a big disclosure. This is like...
Natasha, not into any of this. Nothing burger. She was unimpressed.
Did she read it?
She read it.
And what did she think?
She was unimpressed.
I know, but what? Like, why?
Her exact words were nothing burger.
Come on. Okay, well, I'm going to read I've highlighted some of it for the show to talk about it because I want people to read, to listen to what it's all about, and then we can discuss it.
I'd love to. I'd like nothing more than that. So, which jingle should I play? Is this the Operation Project? Or
Sure, whatever you want,
first?
whichever one you want.
We're going to start with the quotes then.
Okay.
It's the profound quote of the week.
Darren, can you guess it?
It's the profound quote of the week.
So this is another one of these books that has quotes all the way through it, which I love.
Wrote it down.
So this is where he's talking about sort of science and energy and stuff. He says, black holes have so much in common with the universe. A new theory of its origin is always to be expected. Here's mine. Energy burst into existence because it wanted to. It was and is its intention to exist. The intention is the ability, is the ability. If true, we are here because we want to be. Thoughts come to us and become things because they want to. They too are and have the intention to exist. If we knew that to be true, we would choose our thoughts carefully. To choose what we create, we would confirm what we were told. To build lives on the truth. We have our work cut out for us. It's very interesting. You're going to love this interview. It's coming up this Wednesday for Outlawed. Here's another section of it. When we see that the official stories about God, school, 9/11, and the assassination of President John F. Kennedy are lies that cause harm, we stop obeying liars and protect ourselves from them. Those who deceive intend to enslave. Those who would be free make the truth their God. Is it simply us versus them? Forces in the shadows playing us, we the people, against the middle and both ends? Continuous fighting against each other, creating strife, dissension, and death? How do we stop it and create a better world for all of us and our children and their children? We need to understand where we have been, how our institutions have failed us, and what we can do to make that better future for all.
That last one, you can do one more.
That's it.
That's all you got. All right. What was the other thing you wanted to do? I forgot already.
The Operation Project.
Oh, right. The wappo.
Anyway, so far I'm enjoying the book. It's going to be a good show with Bruce coming up this Wednesday. Check out Grimerica Outlawed.
You're enjoying the
for
book?
that. Yeah.
I can't find the Oppo.
He asks a lot of questions in it. I appreciate that.
He asks a lot of questions?
Yeah.
What was your favorite one?
Is every thought everywhere? Does that explain the coincidences we experience? Or the remote viewing done by our military and intelligence community? Are there infinite universes, infinite dimensions, infinite versions of every event, all possible past, presents, and futures, happening simultaneously, perpetually, as science or science fiction can imagine? Are you and I wondering how spirit is perceived? Like fish wondering how water is perceived?
Okay.
Is it all spirit?
No. That's
all
enough.
alive?
That's enough. That's enough. Maybe it's too much.
What's that noise? Looks military to me. Definitely military. Probably classified too.
Dish Fire, Prism, Sentry Eagle, Sigma, Mannequin, Artichoke, MK Ultra. Operation Project.
So this is from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. It's the preliminary assessment, unidentified aerial phenomena, June 25th, 2021. So literally like a couple days ago. And Darren's girlfriend thinks it's a nothing burger. I'm interested to hear what Darren thinks after I read it to him. So they're talking about all these cases that they studied from the years 2004 to 2021. And they're basically saying limited data leaves most UAP unexplained. So they've been able to explain one case. The others remain unexplainable.
What was the one?
It was a large deflating balloon. The rest of them are unexplainable. 144 reports originating from USG sources. Of these, 80 reports involved observation with multiple sensors. Most reports described UAP as objects that interrupted pre-planning training or other military activity. So then they get into like basically available reporting is largely inconclusive, the UAP collection challenges, but some potential patterns do emerge. There's a little chapter on that, and a handful of UAP appear to demonstrate advanced technology. In 18 incidents described in 21 reports, observers reported unusual UAP movement patterns or flight characteristics. Some UAP appear to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly or at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. In a small number of cases, military aircraft systems processed radio frequency energy associated with these sightings. The UAPTF holds a small amount of data that appear to show UAP demonstrating acceleration or a degree of signature management. Additional rigorous analysis are necessary by multiple teams or groups of technical experts to determine the nature and validity of these data. We are conducting further analysis to determine if breakthrough technologies were demonstrated. Well, I mean, that's just stupid. Obviously, they are. So then there's a UAP probability lack a single explanation. So then they get into, there's five categories that they put them in. There's airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, USG or industry development programs, and foreign adversary systems, and then an other category. So in the USG or industry development program, some UAP observations could be attributable to developments in unclassified programs by U.S. entities. So she thinks that's a nothing burger?
Nothing burger.
We were unable to confirm, however, that these systems accounted for any of the UAP reports we collected. And then foreign adversary systems, some UAP may be technologies deployed by China, Russia, another nation, or non-governmental entity. So then they talk about in the other category, the UAPTF intends to focus additional analysis on the small number of cases where a UAP appeared to display unusual flight characteristics or signature management. So then they call this, there's a section here on the threatened flight safety and possibly national security. They pose a hazard to safety of flight and could pose a broader danger. In some instances, represent a sophisticated collection against U.S. military activities by a foreign government or demonstrate a breakthrough aerospace technology by a potential adversary. So there's 11 reports of documented instances in which the pilots reported near misses. So this is under the potential national security challenges. We currently lack data to indicate any UAP are part of a foreign collection program or indicative of a major technological advancement by a potential adversary. So then they say that, all this stuff, then they say they lack data to indicate this. So it is pretty frustrating. I would say it's not a nothing burger, but it's frustrating because there's sort of some contradictions in here. We continue to monitor for evidence of such programs, given the counterintelligence challenge they would pose, particularly as some UAP have been detected near military facilities or by aircraft carrying the USG's most advanced sensor systems. And then under the chapter explaining UAP will require analytic collection and resource investment. So this is like, remember we did that recording with Darcy Weir and Gary King about crop circles and UFOs, and he was talking about this. Like, this is like the white project requisition for funding, basically. Like, hey, we're acknowledging these things exist. We need more funding for AI analysis, AI management, data collection. I mean, it's just...
So they can get more money to chase their own stuff?
No, I mean, it's not their own... I mean, who knows if it's their own stuff? I don't know.
Yes, I got a great idea.
Yeah. Let's come out with it. Like, soft disclosure. We'll tell them we don't know what it is because we don't know what they all
Get a
are.
bunch of money to investigate it.
Yeah. The initial focus will be to employ artificial intelligence machine learning algorithms to cluster and recognize similarities and patterns in features of the data points. There you go.
There you have it.
They suck the FAA's, you know what, here. They talk about the FAA a lot. They give it props. The FAA captures data related to AAP during the normal course of managing air traffic operations. The FAA generally ingests this data when pilots and other airspace users report unusual or unexpected events to the FAA's air traffic organization. So I don't know. I mean, I think people are scared to submit reports to the FAA. It's not like the FAA has been proactively collecting data. I mean, they might have some that they don't publicly talk about. So now under the expand collection, this is where they get to, they're looking for novel ways to increase collection of UAP clusters when U.S. forces are not present as a way to baseline standard UAP activity and mitigate the collection bias in the data set. One proposal is to use advanced algorithms to search historical data captured and stored by radars. So, I mean, there's nothing in here about all the civilian programs, that's what sort of, frustrates me. I mean, they could have said, oh, hey, we're going to work with, civilian programs to collect their data. I mean, there's been organizations collecting data for decades. It was never acknowledged by academia or the media or anybody. I mean, this has been being investigated for decades by people. And this is just their own little thing, It's just kind of gross. So, I mean, I think it's a nothing burger for us, but for people that, like, this is acknowledging there's...
Well, I mean, she does date me, so...
What?
She does date me, so she's not like... she's closer to our side than...
Yeah.
A total normal.
Because there's an acknowledgement here of anomalous phenomena, right? It really... They need more... They're acknowledging they don't know what it is. Out of all the reports, 144 or whatever, they only know what one was. They're admitting that they don't know what these are. So seems like, I mean, seems important from a disclosure perspective for normal people to acknowledge the mystery. That's all I wanted from disclosure, was an acknowledgement by the media, by academia, not our government. That would start with this, right? And it's just so fascinating that Mike, who's going to be in studio next weekend for an intro, he saw the same thing. It's not just a sensor anomaly. This is like they're seeing it with their eyes as well. They do say that in here, that some of them have been observed with the eyes, not just through sensors. So something weird's going on. I feel like if it's other countries or the U.S. black projects, it's super, super advanced. Like, from what Mike saw, it was skipping in and out of dimensions. Like, there was a point on the frame that was caught in 3 places. One object, or maybe that it was just so fast skipping through that it was caught in one frame in 3 places. Like, that's how does that even happen? And then it was skipping from one side of the monitor to the next, like one side of the camera to the next. Instantly. Like, you can't even measure the speed of that. I mean, it's thousands and thousands, like right in and out. I mean, sure, they could have that advanced technology, but I don't know.
We'll have to see if more comes out, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's
So
see what's next.
that's all you think, eh? That's it.
Well, I mean, I don't really trust the source.
Yeah. Well, no, either do I. I mean, this is part of the thing. There's a reason why it's coming out now as well, right? I mean, they're priming us for something.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be just for money, but I feel like there's a bigger agenda at play here.
It always could be for money. Speaking of money, if you're getting some value from the show, do remember this isn't a free podcast, even though it seems free in every sense of the word. You can download every episode in the back catalog. They're all there. They're all free, everything. We don't really try to sell you anything. Actually, we might have tried to sell you some Audible and stuff in the earlier episodes. We also...
Well, we tried a portal.
People accused me of selling squatty potties for a while.
Oh, that was hilarious.
I was not
we couldn't
selling.
but we couldn't even get a free one. I mean,
Couldn't
they
even get a
didn't
free
even want to be
squatty potty.
associated with us.
Didn't even want anything
We're
to do with
raving
us.
about squatty potties, and they didn't even want anything
I was
to do
going to
with
have them on
it.
the
The
show.
one
They're
time-
like,
no.
not interested, buddy.
Tell us.
So whatever. If you are getting some value from the show, grimerica.ca/support. If it's adding some value to your day, to your commute, to your workout, to your work day, whatever the fuck, wherever you're listening to the show, if it's making it a little bit better. How much better? Price of a coffee, a cable subscription, a newspaper, magazine, whatever you kids spend your money on these days. Head over to grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly. Make a one-time donation, whatever you can do. Of course, Graham's no longer working. This is all he's doing. Well, he did some painting last week. You're able to pick up a little painting job on the side.
Yeah, a little scenic painting.
Yeah, there you go. But we're trying to he's trying to make a go at this. We can't do it without you guys. We love you. grimerica.ca/support if you can. I'd love to get there too one day. I'm actually trying to buy a farm right now. So, whatever you guys can do, help us push us along towards our, because then we could do all sorts of fun stuff at the farm. We could have you could do with some of your crazy rituals out back.
What?
You can make a little Stonehenge back there and sacrifice something.
Oh my God. Sure. Let's try it.
What would we sacrifice?
A fake god of the deep state or something like that.
Whoa. Yeesh.
No, we won't play around with that stuff. We don't want to summon anything.
Let's do a
We don't want to
sea
get into that. We'll just. No, I don't even want to do that. We'll just meditation.
We'll
Just
meditate.
basic. In the teepee. Do
If we
sweat
get a
lodge, some
teepee,
sweat
yeah.
lodges. Yeah.
Totally. So grimerica.ca/support. We do have big plans around here. We got things we're trying to do. Like I say, Graham's trying to do this full time. We're trying to grow.
I took a leap of faith. It's not
Took a
like we're
leap of
ready
faith.
yet, but we
Not
got
quite
lots
there.
of time, lots of
I'm
stuff
still
to do.
working full time. grimerica.ca/support. If you can, when you can, we'd love you for it. We could not and would not be here if it wasn't for the people that were doing it already. That being said, you can also check out our other podcast, grimericaoutlawed.ca, where we have another 25 or 30 plus episodes over there. Interviews, an hour for free, 2 hours for members. We got, must be up to almost 20 episodes over on Rockfin now. I think we're at actually 20 episodes over on Rockfin. And on Grimerica Goes Deep, all the video stuff for the Rockfin members. We did the first one was Ancient Mysteries and Lost Civilizations. And after that, we did Climate Change. And then the third was just sort of an
Mishmash.
amalgamation, all sorts of
Fun
crazy stuff that finished off with Dave Matheson. Which
Well,
we
it's
get
not
published
finished
later
yet.
this
I
week.
mean,
Are we going more?
Yeah,
Episode
sure.
9?
Sure.
All right.
Let's
We'll just
do it.
fucking go
Let's
for
keep
it.
going.
Shoot the moon.
So you're putting Dave Matheson's teaser in this audio version of the podcast,
Yes,
right?
speaking of that, I'm going to put the teaser for episode 8 with our buddy, good friend, CAC presenter, David Matheson. I actually just put the canvas up of Dave and I on the stairwell this weekend.
Nice.
Walmart's out of framing material for the foreseeable future, so I had to frame it myself. Part of the wood crisis, I guess. Anyway, what else you got? Is that about it?
Yeah, that's about it. I guess I got an email, but I'll save it for next time.
You sure? Might as well read it.
Okay.
Should I play a jingle? Nah, we don't need a jingle.
So he's congratulating me for on the move to go full time. He says, "Hi, Graham. I've been away from Grimerica for a long while. I wanted you to know that I was pleased to hear the Michael Ronan episode because I see this to be the closest to summing up the work you guys are doing from the episodes I've listened to. I see that the simple summation of shows like yours is to bring knowledge that will guide and support the extending of one's responsibility to the facts of their life. that this type of responsibility can be explained so it can be eventually or instantly known true, to know who we are. I'm hopeful, but the move from the speculation of a book written to the realization of truth through assimilation is quite the task. Mr. Ronan is correct. It is not the reverence of the guru that the student should imitate. However, finding the step towards knowing one's existence, knowledge, and blissful nature is a grand feat to realize discernment. Knowing how to be more patient or to relax or to surrender or to let go is easier said than known how to do when it is needed. I was happy to hear that you are now committed to this work full time. Congratulations on taking the step. I see that Grimerica will be all the better for this. Best, Marty.
Marty Leeds?
No.
Oh.
Marty.
McFly?
No. Yeah, our past guest, Marty Hansen.
Ah, great.
A few years back, we had him in the studio.
Yeah, there's some art up the stairs.
Personal trainer and yoga teacher now, and spiritual. I would say he's one of these guys that can mix spiritual philosophy with athletics very well, and just from a personal improvement standpoint.
Marty's a gem. We should have him back on the show.
Yeah.
Why don't you get him back in here?
Sure, maybe. Maybe we'll do Outlawed with him.
Ooh, wonder if we could do an event with Marty. A little Canadian event.
He would. Oh, yeah, he would love that. Yeah.
A little Canadian event. Everyone's always wanting a Canadian event.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll do that.
People that don't want to go to the States.
Well, we'll see what happens with your farm and stuff.
Especially now. If it's going to be difficult to travel still, then we should do something for the Canadians at some point, I guess.
I got another email from somebody who's out there hunting and farming and says that whenever we're going away like that, he'll join us, or he's another local guy. So I'm trying to collect some local listeners' emails and stuff and keep everybody a little bit in closer contact. Yeah.
All right. Great job. We'll have to do a meetup soon. If we can get the farm, we could do all that stuff.
Yeah. Just have like events all the time there.
And a place to wig out to. How much safer would you feel if I had a farm? If you knew you could just show up there when the shit goes down and we could just like hole up way the fuck away from the city, got some food supply. I need to get like 50 chickens when I get out there. Have like 300 eggs a week. Be slanging eggs like a motherfucker.
There you go. Yeah, I'd feel safer, probably. Yeah.
Around here, it's not too bad till they get hungry. Once they get hungry.
Let's just enjoy this 2 months of the summer.
They start turning into fucking zombies, man. Enjoy this fantastic teaser with the fabulous David Matheson. Star Therapy with the one and only David Warner Matheson. And then, of course, the fabulous chat with, enjoy the chat. We started off arguing about Shakespeare.
Well, no, we weren't arguing. I mean, he's got some really good opinions. I mean, he's got sort of the mainstream opinion on Shakespeare, not like Alan Green, who says Bacon wasn't Shakespeare, but he's got some evidence but he's got some evidence that says maybe it was just Bacon.
We should get him on there to fight.
And then I brought up maybe Bacon was divinely conceived, and I don't know, that didn't go very well.
Anyway, enjoy the chat, and see you next week. Enjoy the chat.
All those stories are based on this worldwide system of celestial metaphor that we find in all these cultures around the world. But anyway, when I first realized that the Bible was based on the stars, then I had to ask myself, well, then what's the point of that? Why is the Bible and all these other myths based on the stars? What are they trying to tell us? Is it just a gigantic crossword puzzle, an intellectual exercise, see how you can connect it to the stars? And I'm convinced that it's not that. A central part of their message has to do with this concept of self that you just mentioned, Darren, and recovery of the self. It's not just that we plunge down into this body and lose touch with the spiritual realm, or whatever you want to call it, the other realm that does exist, that is real. We lose connection with that, but also these cycles are talking about we lose connection with who we are. We lose connection with actual yourself. That is what causes. There's another psychologist who was is a real pioneer in trauma therapy, Dr. Peter Levine. Yeah, Dr. Peter Levine, that Dr. Gabor Mate refers to Dr. Peter Levine. And Dr. Peter Levine says, trauma is the most, and then he reels off a string of adjectives. I don't remember them all by heart, but it's the most ignored, the most unappreciated, the most denied cause of human suffering. He throws in about 7 or 8 other adjectives, but it's the most ignored cause of human suffering. It's the most denied cause of human suffering that there is. Trauma is disconnection from self, from family, from others, from nature, from the universe.
Wow.
And so, and I would say from the divine realm. So I would say that the disconnection from self leads to all those other disconnections. Because when you're disconnected from yourself, you can't empathize with others because you're operating out of these defensive mechanisms. Well, these parts that we have, we'll get into this, these parts of us, we all have multiple personalities. This other person would pop out. So I'd be talking to them about, well, this part that's cutting you, or this part that's doing this. What are they trying to protect, or what is it that they want? And he said, during these sessions, sometimes this other person would pop out who sort of knew how to relate in a healing way to all the parts inside. Already knew. And as I asked clients, now, what part of you is that? They'd say, well, that's not a part of me like these others. That's me, or that's myself. But the myths around the world often have these big cataclysmic battles. You can think of the Trojan War, right? The Iliad in ancient Greece, the Achaeans versus the Trojans. This is, you can also think of the Battle of Ragnarok. This is a pattern that we find around the world, these big cataclysmic battles between two sides. In the Greek myths, besides the Trojan War, there's also the battle between the gods and the Titans, and the giants. There's these big, Hesiod is an ancient writer from like 700 BC who writes about those big clashes between the Olympians and the Titans in the earliest time of the world. And this one is from ancient India. Maybe you can tell a little bit just from some of that golden chariot there in the lower right. This is a very, very famous epic from ancient India. It's been called the longest poem in the world. I've referred to it before. It actually contains within it the Bhagavad Gita, but the overall arching epic has come to be known as Mahabharata. And those two scions of the Kuru race, so they're both descended from these ancient ancestors, Arjun and Duryodhan, but now they're cousins. This is two sides of the family. Those tigers among men, these are just, powerful tigers among men, on arriving there, saw that Krishna was asleep and drew near him as he lay down. They both want to ask him to be on their side, but they're not going to wake up the sleeping god. So they just wait there. But Sagittarius, in this case, is playing the role of Arjun, or Arjun is definitely associated with Sagittarius. And I talk about more evidence for that in some of the things that I've written, particularly in that book from 2019, The Ancient Worldwide System. And here's some pictures here's Arjun and Krishna. This is a picture of Arjun and Krishna I think this is from the 1800s or something, but, or maybe even the earlier 1900s. But you can see that Arjun has his hands folded together. He's got a crown that's got kind of a, like a spike coming off the back of it, just like Sagittarius has a diadem or like a feather coming off the top of his head. But you can even see the bow down on the ground next to Arjun, and you see his quiver of arrows on his back. So figures associated with Sagittarius will very frequently have a bow as their weapon. And this is Arjun at the foot of the bed. So what is this? I put in some arrows. There's Arjun. There's Krishna. You can see Krishna in this case is carrying like a looped kind of, I think it's a whip for driving a chariot. You can see the chariot in the background. You see it looks kind of like a sci-fi chariot in the background.
Yeah, on the left there, yeah.
Yeah, with a flag on top of it. So this is actually the part of the Mahabharata right before the battle. I believe that Commodus was being manipulated by, behind the scenes, the enemies of this ancient wisdom who wanted to get rid of it. And it was a power struggle. So in the Roman Empire is when literalist Christianity, the literalist interpretation of these ancient scriptures, started to gain more and more strength, and eventually took over by the time of Constantine. But it was, and I believe that this juncture between Marcus Aurelius and Commodus was the beginning, was kind of the first salvos in that battle. He says, you have these different parts, and you can ask those parts, hey, what job do you do for Dave? What job do you do for Graham? You know, that part that got really angry. You can actually step back and say, hey, we got really angry there for a second. What was that about? What are you doing? Why are you so angry? And you can ask yourself that question. You can ask your part that question. Yourself can ask the question. Dr. Schwartz talks about putting a buffer in, or Dr. Gabor Mate talks about having a buffer between that. When that feeling starts to surge, that's what the
space for
being present.
Space for a response instead of a reaction, or maybe no response, or at least for a choice,
or saying, okay, hey, firefighter, actually, I see that you're trying to do something very valuable for the team. You're trying to stop that from happening. Can you just take a break? Because I need to go talk to that issue. It's actually, you're not gonna get to that Marcus Aurelius, and it's a lifelong, that ideal that he's talking about, until you heal that part that has that burden. Thomas is playing the role of a protective part. The other disciples say, we saw the risen Lord. And he says, you know, I've been burned one too many times. I do not have the luxury of being so gullible as you guys are. We can't get burned again. I doubt it. I won't believe it until I see it for sure. I've been burned just too many times in love, in whatever. That is a protective part coming in and saying, no. Don't tell me that you saw the risen Lord. It's not that you're getting rid of the Thomas part or the whatever part. You want it to be, you want that team to live up to its full potential. But guess what? They're not. They're going to be self-sabotaging each other and doing, you're not going to live up to that full potential until you start to wrestle with these things. And the myths are showing us that. And yet we, at first, this talk of higher self is like off-putting, or like, like we resist it. Yeah. So the myths are like showing it to you in a way that gets through those defenses.
Yeah, I like the deeper self thing instead. That's good. Or the authentic self. All right, we've got John DeHerrera back. Herrera back with us. You were on in an intro. We talked about the Constitution Article 5, and we brought you back to talk more about that and the Hopi. Right. And then I thought maybe I feel like you got something else that you want to get off your chest about Sir Francis Bacon and Shakespeare and all that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That stuff. I'd like to lead off with the Shakespeare stuff.
That's what I thought.
It's kind of short, and it's something. It's something for the listeners, the folks, because I just came into knowledge of you guys like 3 months ago. It wasn't that long ago, and so I've been going through your archives, listening to all the great things that you've recorded and everything. It's been awesome. And so the one guy that you interviewed, Alan Green, the Shakespeare stuff, it's. Well, I actually thought about this earlier. So let me put it to you this way. You know how in the soccer game where the guy almost had a cardiac arrest, and they stopped the game and stuff, and then they were raising the question is, well, should these guys be playing so soon after a traumatic event and stuff? And so I was like going, should you tell them about the Shakespeare stuff? Because it might be a little traumatic for some people.
Is this after watching the second one where he went through on the video with all the deconstructing The geometry on the cover and all that, more the pyramid type one.
Right. I saw you. He had, I guess, 2 interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah, more focused on that second one.
Okay.
And so anyway, so any of the listeners, anyone who's listening, it's not a mystery who Shakespeare was. It's not. It was Sir Francis Bacon. The guy was the son of Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth, the quote-unquote virgin queen, right? She had children outside of that, and she raised them in her court. She would, like, her head lawyer, which was Sir Bacon. She's like, you're going to raise this kid. And so it was her kid. Sir Bacon raised him, and the queen oversaw his life. He was sent abroad to France and Italy, where the Shakespearean plays happen. And so there's all that stuff. But the kicker is that Sir Francis Bacon, who is known to most people as the father of empiricism, he was the guy that had us make that shift from rats are born out of bales of straw, to wait, do we have any evidence for that? What's going on? So he was that guy. But he had a notebook that he kept while he was a young man at the court in France and at the court in Italy. And that notebook is called the Promus, and it's in the British Museum. It's an actual artifact. It's in his handwriting, and dozens and dozens and dozens of phrases that Sir Francis Bacon wrote into his notebook while abroad end up in the plays, all over the plays.
Do you remember why Alan said, because I remember asking him about that and trying to get him to admit that not that specific connection, but that there's a possibility, but he wasn't going for it, was he?
Now there's an impasse. When you reach that impasse, then you wonder, all right, are they on the take or are they asleep? Either they're on the take or they're asleep.
Well, no, I mean, he could have another complete theory, that they're.
Well, come on. If the Promus is an artifact that exists in a museum and it has all the phrases from Shakespeare predating the plays from 1594 to 1596, the Promus was written, and the plays all start showing up in 16 something. So if you think that it's if you do think there's some dots, you can get it on Amazon. It's coincidences, and I sent you a text. But here's one of the coincidences. In Othello, this will be interesting, and we'll end with Shakespeare on this, and everyone can go check out the Shakespeare stuff at the links. But anyways, here's one of the coincidences. The tragedy of Othello was first printed in quarto in 1622, 6 years after the reputed author's death. So Othello first appeared 6 years after Shakespeare, the Stratford guy, died. Though it had been in existence as an acting play for 10 or 12 years preceding, in the folio of 1623, it appears in a revised form containing, among other striking improvements, 160 additional lines. So here we have a play that its latest quarto, when it was last published, had an additional 160 lines. Now that's like a big addition, right? There's tons of other plays that was like small additions here and there. So 160 lines, and it has to do with these lines that have to do with some rivers in the Mediterranean. And so here's their example. It seems to be probable then that sometime between the date of the first appearance of the play on the stage, 1610, and that in the folio, 1623, the author's attention had been called to a tidal peculiarity of the Mediterranean Sea, namely that the current through which the Bosphorus flows continuously in one direction from east to west. William Shakespeare died in Stratford 6 years before this publication of the play in its original draft, which was, as we've said, in 1622. Francis Bacon investigated the tides of the Mediterranean in or about 1616, and in his treatise on the subject, made a special reference to the fact that through the Bosphorus, the tide never ebbs.
Interesting.
So here it is. Sir Francis Bacon is a sovereign, right? He's Hamlet, right? He's a bastard son of the queen. He's there. So Hamlet's all based on that, right? He's an incredible poet genius at that moment, with the divine right of kings and all that stuff. He came in there and he put his life into words. And so anyway, so it's a fascinating thing to look into.
Well,
if you are, if you want to adhere to it's someone else, then that's okay too.
Well, let me throw this at you then. Try and expand on it a little bit. What if Queen Elizabeth was a virgin, immaculate conception, and Bacon was the result?
Is Jesus?
No, like equivalent.
Oh, he's a new Jesus?
Like I'm just reading this book right now, and it's fascinating to me because it's about Mary and her mother and the Immaculate Conception and this thing that was happening through all the mythologies and through the ancient times with these women in secret societies and how they would try to become pregnant through divine intervention. And they were adjusting their diets and how they would have groups of they would do it in groups, and they'd have to be virgins, and they'd have to be celibate and save all their sexual energy, and then they would sometimes get struck by light. I mean, this is going on way more than I thought through the ages. And what if that's more of a contemporary? I'm not through the book far enough to know if Queen Elizabeth is in there, but
No, it was known to all the people alive at the time. People like Johnson, right? He basically said, Sir Bacon gave us. He said Sir Bacon took the English language from a third world country to a first world country because no one spoke English before Shakespeare came along, and so.
And Bacon was supposed to be. Oh, we're losing you again. We lost you again.
What? Okay, right. I can hear you now. Say it again. What was the last statement?
Bacon was supposed to be from divinely conceived by Queen Elizabeth. Or what did you say? What did you say at the beginning? Or was it Bacon? How did you say it was?
No. The divine right of kings. No, I was just saying that at the time, Bacon didn't like the people. He called them the rabble. The sweaty, hogs, or so Bacon was firmly in that culture that yes, there's a paradox. There's a continuum from next to God to far away from God. And all that kind of stuff. So I was just saying in terms of that, of that cultural.
Now, my understanding is that doesn't Alan think Bacon's in on it?
Well, now that's
because
really
I'm just on his website right now, and he's got the portion of it that's called the Players: Queen Elizabeth I, Edward de Vere, Henry Leslie, Francis Bacon, John Dee. And then so I think his premise is that all those people have sort of conspired to create Shakespeare.
Yes. And I have been to the site and I did go through all those pages. But if you look at his page on Bacon, it's conspicuous that he doesn't mention the Promus at all. He doesn't mention the fact that the dude's notebook is in the British Museum with dozens and dozens of quotes that end up in the plays way before the plays were ever published. So if you got any doubts after that, and the fact that there's no, letters, there's no drafts, not a shred. Here's a guy who supposedly is a playwright trying to build up these new plays and make them as rad as possible. There's not one shred of communication between any of them. It should be really clear that for some reason the status quo people don't want us to know that Sir Francis Bacon was this rad dude, was a fucking literal genius. All the stuff he did for science and the arts. And if you do believe Bacon was Shakespeare, I mean, look at all the poems and the sonnets and stuff. The guy was a fucking genius. So
maybe he was divinely born. I think he was divinely born. Francis Bacon to Queen Elizabeth.
No,
Apologia,
no.
you are my own son, but you through truly royal of fresh and masterly spirit shall rule, nor England, nor your mother, nor reign over your subjects yet to be.
We're just a bunch of humans here on planet Earth. all that stuff is part of projection and myth and everything. Now, there could be truth in that projection. And I mean, if you look at our DNA, then you know that it can be unlocked and that we could all of a sudden live for hundreds of years, et cetera. We know that capability is there. So there is truth to that. But up to now, the narrative of humanity, as far as I've understood, based on the information I've processed, is that this is like a grand theater. We're at the tipping point here of what we're going to do as a species, and we have all this rad stuff, such as Shakespeare was Sir Francis Bacon. No ifs, ands,
So
or buts.
I'll read the part off his site here. Francis Bacon, another spear shaker. Sir Francis Bacon, Baron of Verulam, Viscount Saint, 1561 to 1626, was not only a recognized genius, but also a man of many parts. A renowned philosopher, poet, orator, author, essayist, cryptographer, courtier, lawyer, parliamentarian, statesman, intellectual reformer, and master of the English tongue. He was first QC and KC, and in later life became Lord Keeper of the Great Seal and Lord Chancellor. So, I mean, I feel like he does call him a genius, and he just thinks, and I feel like it doesn't have to be either or, because he seems to think that, he conspired with John Dee and a couple other people to create Shakespeare. So he might have done all the writing, and the other people have helped do the encoding.
Well, said that text you just read, Bacon is a master of the English tongue. When in reality, Bacon was the one who made English masterful. He was the one who went abroad, and all those words. Do you know how many words were added to the English language with those poems and with those plays? So that's, I personally, I don't know what Alan's story is. I sent him an email saying, "Hey, what about the poems?" I never heard back from him. But which actually, I did talk to the guy at sirbacon.org. His name is Lawrence Gerald, and I'll shoot you his number. I talked to him. I said, can you please do an interview with these guys, Grimerica?
Oh, thanks, buddy.
So he said he'll do it. So you guys,
okay.
you guys have got a Sir Bacon episode for sure.
That would be fun.
Yeah, so
it would be fun. I'm just trying to look at because I'm trying to remember the premise of why they were all doing it. But there was a bunch of stuff encoded in the title of the sonnets, and
it had to do with the pyramids in the end. And
well, maybe we should get all you guys on the show at the same time. I mean, I could text Alan. He's probably busy right now, but we could do another show down the road.
Darren, we've never actually met, but hi. My name's John.
I'm Darren.
but Darren, I know we've never communicated.
Didn't we do a show before?
Intro. Yeah.
But Darren, so when you just said you said what they're doing, and you meant the writers of whoever Shakespeare was. What did you mean by that? Like encode? You mentioned the word encoding too, and I wasn't clear on that idea.
So now I'm like paraphrasing probably poorly, but it's like the idea was that inside of all of the Shakespeare sonnets is encoded a bunch of this crazy math stuff and theorems that weren't even publicly available yet. Right. Which would sort of fit into the Francis Bacon motif to me. So it's like they had all the stuff that mainstream science and academia hadn't come up with yet, but it's already in the sonnets, you know, back in the dates you're referring to. And mainstream science, I don't remember the dates or anything, but it was like mainstream science didn't figure some of this shit out for another 20 years. and a big part of it is the title itself. And there's like 4 different mathematical things built into the title if you draw lines between the dots.
Right. There's all that kind of neat stuff in there. But in terms of, you know, quote unquote, what they were doing back then, that was when the poet was everything. Right. There were poets who were not concealed poets. And by that, I mean, there were, you know, John Donne was one of our famous English poets. But those guys weren't part of the court. They weren't hanging out at the court. Some of them kind of did, and some, but they weren't part of the court.
We got to bust into that fireplace, and then we'll know. In the altar. We got to bust into the altar.
Well, now that's interesting. And you know, it would be awesome if there was something. I mean, that would
contact
be
at the altar. We'll bust that shit open. Hashtag not a cult.
Should have done it during COVID.
Part of me, I've done a lot of legal activism over the years, and I'll get into that in the Article 5 stuff if you want. But you know, part of me, I'm the type. I'm like, wait, there could be something in there that will change the way we see how we're doing. So that's worth going to jail for. So, like, storm it, don't hurt anyone.
It's especially worth someone else going to jail for it. I agree. Listen, I agree. The problem is in another country. Because now I'm a terrorist. I'm a terrorist.
Well, you know, it's such a big. It would be such a big idea to break onto.
You're like running out with the scroll in your hand.
You know. We'll have to be in an English jail for a little bit, but who cares?
It's probably probably better than a Canadian jail anyway. Probably safer.
Yeah, right. Aren't the Europeans are socialized, right? They're I guess the folks. I don't know.
We'll be getting emails.
If there's probably no jail.
Yeah, they just like fine. The Bobbies or the
just
Billies? What are the cops?
Service, that's it.
The cops don't even have guns.
You know, you guys.
The cops don't even have guns. We'll just run away.
Yeah. The word socialized is a gnarly word, and I could derive probably 3 or 4 interpretations of me using it just then. The sense that I meant in
the most derogatory possible
is that as a stupid American who's been corporatized, right? I heard the French give prisoners croissants, right? You know, so part of it that is like
it's probably
joke,
still better bread than we get here too.
It's right. It's partly a joke, but it's also part true and stuff. So
No, we don't.
I just thought, all right, yeah, maybe you guys are right. Maybe the English jails are better than the Canadian jails.
Well, they're probably similar to Canada, but yeah, they're. I mean, we're not privatized like you guys down there. That's pretty weird, privatizing your whole jail system.
Dude, oh my God. Well, you know, it's all part of what I call, my term for it is the dragon's claw, right? It's slowly closing on us, and we're all sitting here going, oh my God, what are we going to do? And so if that's the case, that's a really exciting time to live, and it's an exciting time to test your mettle and really kind of adhere or be focused on what you're actually saying and what you're actually doing. You know, what are you saying and what are you doing day to day? Is it cool? Is it good? Good. All right. Yeah. Because guess what? It is possible to be cool every day and to say the right things and you know, not 100%. No one can do that, but people can be cool. And And, you know, the corporate media stuff, you see all, you know, overall a bunch of fucking idiots. Well, no, we're not. They just like flash that to us all the time. And so, hey, let's talk about the Article 5 stuff.
Yeah, sure. But I do want to say that that's well said, and I agree with you. I mean, it is interesting times. I got to bring myself back to we are living in amazing, unique time.
Oh
like
my God,
it's so it's that to have that level of curiosity instead of sort of black pill doom scrolling is I think that's really good advice. So.
Yeah. So
and leave time for the Hopi. We want to get into the Hopi a little bit too. So
before we launch into the Article 5, one moment, please.
Okay, sure. Yep. He's just gonna go wave to the train going by right now, going up the coast. He's in the industrial park.
Think he's coming back
on the beach? Yeah, he might be gone for good. He's just there he goes. He got it.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so do you want to go with the Hopi or the Article 5?
Article 5.
Okay. How did it go?
So last report was we had this, we had articlevconvention.org set up as an online Article 5 convention. And there was, at present, there's 102 delegates signed on there. Earlier this month, we did put it to the people that are signed on. Should we cap the convention? Should we shut off, no more delegates, only this 80 of us or 100, how many people were on that day? And it was... I think it was 6-2. 6 people said no, don't cap it. And 2 people said yeah, cap it. So, so there was a couple other exchanges about this one amendment regarding creating a federal standard for voting and voter registration. Right. So in America, we were all just traumatized by this rat election and, people's heads are still spinning from it. And so, well, if you're an adult and you walked into the room and saw the situation, you'd say, oh, well, you need a federal standard for voting and voter registration. Right. Now you're not going to be guessing whether this state or that state got it right. And, so that's the common sense stuff. And the Congress, of course, the 535 members of Congress aren't talking about it, right? They're just walking around talking about A, B, and C and all these other things. So, so the Article 5 convention that is currently existing on articlevconvention.org is open right now. According to this amendment, which is a single sentence long, that basically says anything we're not talking about here is left to the people. Same thing with the 10th Amendment. So I did notice a couple other people just joined on recently. So it might take off. It might all of a sudden, because it's a really great software for facilitating back and forth and building consensus, and it's there, and so that's happening right now. But I want to talk about the practical politics of Article 5. And that is what's actually happening in America right now regarding that. And I'm speaking from over 20 years now, over 20 years experience. It was right after 9/11. I had heard about the idea of a constitutional convention before that. But within the week of 9/11, I said, the bad guys are going to get in there. They're going to do, they're going to try and pass all this legislation and everything, right? History is going to repeat itself. So I said, we got to have a convention. So I set about trying to bring about a convention, and I ran into Bill Walker, who was a constitutional scholar from the state of Washington. He had a degree in journalism, but he was a constitutional scholar. The guy knew everything about the Constitution. It was just amazing. And that was his thing. He was an Eagle Scout too, by the way.
Can you back up? Can you back up for a second? Just explain for our global audience who's not American, like what is the purpose of Article 5? Like what is the fundamental benefit?
The fundamental thing is when all the guys were in Independence Hall in 1787. That was an actual year that actually happened. A whole bunch of white dudes showed up to this one hall. They sat in there for months. And before they left, Colonel Mason said, wait a minute, Congress can propose changes, but what if Congress becomes the problem? And so they all said, well, we need a convention clause so that if Congress becomes the problem, the states can say, hey, we need a convention. This isn't working. Right? So
and when you say convention in that regard, that's kind of hard to understand for people as well, especially myself. So when you say convention, you need a convention, you need an interruption or a what's the word I'm looking for when you stop something?
Pause.
Intervention. Like you need an intervention.
Yeah, technically that's what it is. It's the state stepping in, saying the 535 people in Washington, D.C. are no longer representing anyone except whoever can give them the most money, and that's going to cause a problem, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a rudimentary device that should the federal government become corrupt, if the states started paying in the convention thing and it reached a numerical count, Congress has to call a convention. Well, as it turns out, what happened was when we should have had our first convention back in 1913, it was in regards to the 17th Amendment, and that generation of Americans started beating the drum for a convention. The Congress said, here, yeah, you guys can vote for your state senator. All right, you got it. And it staved off the actual, it pacified the country to not say, no, well, you guys, we still have enough applications, and, people want to talk about other things other than this 17th Amendment. So it was the same of the old thing, or where they just steamrolled over it, and then that generation of Americans weren't able to address what was happening. But over in the successive decades, it happens about once every 10 years, a segment of society will say, you know what, this is bogus. The Congress is bogus, and we should have a convention. And so the mainstream media will, run an editorial saying, geez, they're really close to almost having an Article 5 convention. They've almost got all the states lined up. And then they shoot it down at the end of the editorial. And they say, oh my God, but wait, if we have a convention, everything's on the table. Special interest delegates, maybe they might slice and dice in the Constitution. That's crazy. We don't want a convention. So that's basically the sales pitch. But really a convention, once you have it, once you say, hey, I want a federal standard for voting and voter registration so we don't get traumatized every time we have a national election. Once you talk about it, at some point, a delegate is going to say, I make a motion, we adjourn. I make a motion that we've talked about everything we need to talk about. No one's got any good idea. I want to get back to my family and friends, right? So at some point, the convention, whatever they talk about, is going to adjourn. Now, when it adjourns, nothing will have been ratified. Nothing will have changed from what it is exactly right now. And that's the myth that people can't get over. They think if we enter into a convention, it's going to lead, to me sucking my thumb in a dark room. I can't believe that people. Well, maybe it's not so hard to believe with conditioning and everything, but anyway, so all right, so here we are, boots on the ground thing in terms of Article 5. In 2011, I was working with Larry Lessig, who is a professor at Harvard. He's been in the news here and there over the years. He's actually written a couple books, that mentioned the Article 5 convention. And so in 2011, we had a convention at Harvard in one of the halls. I forget the name of the hall, but it had these really beautiful granite sculpted things. Standing on the steps, marveling at it. But so we had this convention. There's 400 people there, a whole bunch of people from the right and left talking about, what is this convention clause? What are we going to do? And so one of the groups that were there at that convention was this group called Convention of States. And that's been one of the main Astroturf groups.
Wow.
Meaning a group where, yeah, they're talking about convention, but they're going to go down this path that has no real way of getting to an actual convention.
Wow.
And what I mean by that is our group, the group that I was co-founder of Friends of the Article 5 Convention, along with Chief Justice, Michigan Chief Justice Tom Brennan, and constitutional scholar Bill Walker. And we founded that group in 2007. Tom and Bill, as I mentioned in the previous, the first thing I did with you guys, they passed away. And that's actually why that article5convention.org exists, because I'm like, Tom and Bill just passed away. What? So I had that domain, and that's why that exists right now. And it is there. Who knows? It might turn into something.
So did that Astroturf group, the Conventions of the States, come out to sort of take the focus away from the Friends of the Article 5, or?
Right. So here's what happened. So we get to this convention, and Larry knew our position. Bill and Tom and I were there, and they knew our position. And our position was based on the congressional records. The congressional records of the United States of America are actually part of the Constitution, because the Constitution mandates both houses keep records. So that is the living part of the Constitution. Now, in those records, of course, there's going to be state applications, right? It's not a petition. That's a different legal definition. This is an application from a state for a federal convention. And our group had gone into the congressional records, and Bill did most of this stuff. I was trying to get a documentary made at the time. But Bill contacted some folks in Washington, D.C. They went into the records, and they started getting PDF files of the state applications. And that's on one of the links that I sent you, the foavc.org link. And you'll see in one of the little links on the top right hand of the page, you'll see applications, and it shows all the hundreds of applications. And one of the applications is, I think it's from Wisconsin. It's probably from like the 30s. And they say in the memorial, which is how Congress terms it in an application, in the memorial, they Congress, you motherfuckers.
Can you we lost you.
Already cashed applications.
We lost you for a sec.
Yeah,
can you
okay.
repeat that in the memorial, after the in the memorial?
Right. So in Wisconsin Memorial, to paraphrase, they basically said, Congress, you motherfuckers, all these states have already applied for the convention. You have no choice in the matter. This is a ministerial action. This is your constitutional obligation. And so we've had applications like that. So basically, I think I mentioned this to you, Graham, in our first call. There's the writer Voltaire, and he uses the metaphor of, I think he's the first English writer, or he was French, but he was the first writer to use the metaphor of visitors from another part of the galaxy rolling up on planet Earth, right? And they start punching and so, hey, what's going on down there, And if that metaphor was put into effect right now, you'd say, okay, well, on the global stage, the United States of America is one of the premier players. And it's the only player that has a written constitution that has this provision where the people get to build consensus. So anyway, the only reason our world looks the way it does right now is because our Congress was corrupted in various ways, And, in the 1860s, after the Civil War, there was a lot of rad stuff that was done, supposedly incorporation of Washington, D.C. and connection to the London Bank of London, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, the bare facts are that the Constitution has a provision for the people who are alive, not for the people, some nebulous thing. What does it mean to you? But the people who are alive, it's a rudimentary device to say, hey, what do we need to do? What's going on? Anyone got any good ideas? Right? That's all the convention is. And so but having that take place, it makes all the politicians have to dance out of the way, right? But there doesn't have to be a bloody revolution. It's just the people stepping in onto their sacred space to say, what do we want to do? So hopefully that'll happen. And, I'll tell you, we could get the call any day from Congress. I know that seems, oh, my God, they would never do that. But I'll tell you this. This is a couple pieces to the reason I believe it's possible. The first one is in 2010, that was the Tea Party Congress. And that was a Congress where they read the Constitution from the floor of the House on the first day of Congress. They said, yeah, we're the Tea Party Congress. And so before they started reading, they said, well, we're going to read what the Congressional Research Service has told us to read. And the Congressional Research Service is, of course, the research arm that if a member of Congress needs to know anything, they say, what's up with this? So they said, we're going to read what the Congressional Research Service says. And so I'm sitting there watching like a hawk, and they skip over to the convention clause. They don't read it.
Wow.
Right? They skip right over it. We redoubled our efforts.
So did they just go like Article 4, Article 6?
You know what they did? They took off the last clause of Article 4, which is that the Congress shall make sure that everyone gets to live in a Republican government. And they skipped over all the way until they talk about the ratification stuff of whether it's proposed by Congress or a convention. And that's a really salient point is that if you're afraid of a convention, Congress could propose an amendment at any time. They could propose an amendment at any time. And whatever they propose, you got to get roughly 7 out of 10 Americans to say, oh, I like that idea, right? So, and if a convention proposes an idea, again, you're going to have to get 7 out of 10 Americans to agree to it. But anyway, so
it goes to some sort of referendum from there?
Well, once Congress sends the proposed amendments to the states, they get to make the decision whether the ratification mode is going to be like a little mini convention instead. It's going to be the legislature. So what that means in practical terms is that if it's going to go to the legislature, that means the people are going to have to say, hey, my state rep, hey, dude, we want this amendment, man. So it's going to mean the people are going to be pressuring the state legislature. But if it's a little mini convention, then the states hold mini conventions, and then they say, hey, should we do this or not? And in fact, when we got to start drinking beer again, that amendment was ratified by little mini conventions because that step is even closer to the people. So you're even removing the state legislators from the decision making at that point. So the 2010 thing, and they said, well, we're just going to read over Article 5. Tom, Bill, and I redoubled our efforts. We did a lot of blogging. I did had a criminal case that I got lodged in the court system regarding this. And so 2 years later, in 2012, the Congressional Research Service writes a 2-part white paper all about the Article 5 convention. So you got to ask yourself, how is it the Congressional Research Service is telling members of Congress, no, don't read this clause, it's not applicable anymore. Or and then 2 years later, they're like, here's everything we know, including this group, Friends of the Article 5 Convention, who say we should have a call forthwith. Right? So
how do they get away with all this? I mean, it just seems so disappointing that there's a means for you guys to actually do something, and there's not enough people with momentum. Like, where's all these sort of independent groups? Like, where's all the libertarians and all these people that have all, like, the Dave Smiths of the world that are, you know, for all this political change? Yet why don't they use this thing why don't they use their influence to get these things going?
It's been something I've wondered many times over the last 20
and any
years.
kind of momentum you get, it seems like they come out with some sort of way to gaslight it or discredit it.
Right, but here we are, right? Here we are, ready for America, right? The beacon on the hill, ready for America to break us all out of the cage, right? It's a big cage, right? It's not rocket science. So we're all ready to do it, but for some reason the players on the scene are just like, well, let's do it this way. And going back to the Convention of States group, I watched them because I talked to Mark Meckler there at the George Washington Hotel with Cenk Uygur and other people. And I watched those guys their ship go from 0 to 3.5 million.
Yeah.
In 7 years.
Yeah. Exactly.
Took them 7 years to get 3.5. But the COS avenue was, well, we need to just cast one more application and we're going to finally get this convention, right? But that flies in the face of logic to say, well, if the congressional records are strewn with hundreds of applications and the clause has already been legally satisfied, why would you be trying to cast another application? Why wouldn't you be saying, no, Congress, you got to call it right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how they've staved off what's going on. Now, since the advent of the virus thing, as I understand it, they're like at maybe getting close to 6 million. So they've over a year and a half, they've ramped up a lot of Americans. And you know, I have the Google alert, right, where I have Article V convention on there. So anytime it comes up in any of the local editorials, I see it. And so this one woman, Margot, she's in Nebraska. She said, we're going to have a Convention of States meeting in our library, you know, come show up. So I contacted the paper, said, can I get her number? They gave me her number. I talked to her for an hour and a half. They thought 20 people were going to show up, and 150 people showed up, right? This is rural Nebraska. This was this year.
Wow. Well, that's a good sign then, I guess.
Yeah, this was in February, right? So when I talk about boots on the ground, this is the point that I want to get across, is that it's happening right now. There's Americans that are saying, this is bogus, it's not working, right? It's not working for anyone. We got to do this. We got to have this convention. And a lot of people, you know, are saying, well, current Congress is bad. What could a convention propose that would be any worse than what we got right now?
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
So hopefully all that is it's reached to the tipping point. I think it's there. Now, going back to your question, why has this been going on for years? We did all the groundwork. We got it all set up, but we did the lawsuits. We went to the Supreme Court, did the whole thing. Why are prominent people or people who have visibility, right? Chuck Norris wants a balanced budget amendment. Why hasn't Chuck Norris said, you know what, we should have a convention because there's a lot of things we got to talk about, and this is one I want to talk about, but whoever's got the best idea, that's going to decide the day. We'll see that later, but let's have it. You know what, Patricia Arquette, right? I actually, one of the blog things that I did was Chuck Norris and Patricia Arquette call for new amendments to the Constitution.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
That spun some heads, right? Shoot, what was I saying?
There's some meme magic there.
What's that?
That's some meme magic there. I mean, get the troll, get the chans on it.
Right, to try and unlock it. So the question is, why hasn't this already happened? Because it should have happened already a couple times. I'll tell you one time. Listen to this. This is really interesting. So after the convention at Harvard, right? I'm like, Larry, all right, and Sandy Levinson at the University of Texas, right? Those are my two bros. We were like, Sandy's talked about a convention many times. He talked about a convention with Bill Moyers. I'm like, here we go. We're gonna get it now, you know. And there's many times over the last 20 years where I thought, oh, we got it now. But it turns out after the Harvard convention, Larry Lessig got named as a invitee to the Bilderbergs.
Oh my God! There you go. See,
and he went, and he came back, and his tune was changed.
Wow.
Truth. That. Yeah. So I watched that happen. Right.
We got to get to one of these Bilderberg meetings. When's the next one?
Start up in Article 5. Get really close, and then you get invited.
Well, we're Canadian.
Well,
now, Darren, check this out. This is an idea that I've had. Right? You guys see what's going on. You're like, come on, you guys. You have this unique government. You know, it was something new under the sun. It had never been done before, and it's still there as long as the people say it's there. So I always had this idea. What if an international group was started up that basically said, hey, Americans, you fucking idiots.
Exactly.
Hey, Article 5 Convention.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You guys could do that
well,
if you want.
But the problem is the Americans don't look at what's happening around the rest of the world.
No, but it could reach a critical mass outside. And dude, you know, I'm a surfer, and so I know a lot of, you know, on Facebook and stuff, a lot of surfers that I think are the best and awesome. And one of them, Jim Banks, an Australian surfer, he's into all the stuff Grimerica talks, all the stuff that people who are, you know, conscious sapient beings just trying to figure it out. I tried to get him. I'm like, dude, Jim, if you and Peter Townend and Ian Cairns, other, you know, Aussie surfers start saying, America, hold a convention. The corporations are totally fucking us. Come on, you know, it could happen. And so, I don't know. Maybe it starts with Grimerica. Maybe you guys are like, you know what? Since we're all getting crushed by the dragon's claw, we might as well just have fun talking about the truth of the matter, which is, if we put enough pressure on Congress, they will issue the call. Which reminds me, we'll leave off on Article 5 on this note. In 2015. Luke Messer was a representative from the 6th District of Indiana, I believe, and he put in some language to the Judiciary Committee as a resolution that if it made it out of the Judiciary Committee to the floor for a vote, and upon the vote, what that bill would have done is it would have tasked the director of the National Archives to go into the congressional records, find all the state applications, enroll them in federal documents, which they are, and that would force Congress to say, fuck, they're all there. We got to call, hey, guys, hey, send your delegates if you want. This is the date. You don't have to participate, but we got a ministerial duty. We just found out we got to do it.
Yeah, what happened?
Right. So, it never made it out of committee, of course, right? And so that when that resolution failed to get out of committee, that really was the point where you could say what I say on the Article5Convention.org website, which is we're being held hostage.
Yeah.
The Congress is. We've got it all the way to the point to say, okay, you guys, you know, and it died in committee, which, you know, all the good stuff does. But anyways, so really that's where we are as a species, right? We got America here, right? The USA, the Constitution, those articles, those amendments, but most importantly, the articles, because those are the fundamental principles of government, which is that we know from reading all about Rome and everything that governments go south on the people. So we're going to make this thing so that if the government starts to go south, the states can chime in and say, hey, we need to look at this again. right? So it's just rudimentary thing. It's there. We're all here. I really believe it's still possible. In fact, there's another group. I'm not sure how far they are along because we kind of had a falling out about stuff, but they're going to try another online convention July 4th.
Good stuff. You don't want
Yeah.
to do you want to mention who they are? Or?
Oh, yeah, it's articlev.org. Articlev.org. That's Dan Marks. I gave him that domain. Or no, maybe no, I gave it to him. And yeah, he went off. He just had other ideas. And then when I set up the online convention, I told him I was going to do it. And then he came in and I replied to him. I said, hey, we're not quite set up yet, Dan, but, bear with us. And then him and one of his associates started posting these declarations on the forum. And I'm like, whoa, no. We're not posting. We're talking about amendment language. This is an Article 5 convention.
Yeah.
And so then we had a falling out about that. And I haven't heard from, I think he's a great guy. He's done some great work. He's definitely kept me going a couple times where I was flagging. I was like going, dude, oh, no, I can't take any more. He's like, no, dude, come on. We got to keep going. So he's a good guy. We just had a falling out about that. And so the most important thing that I want to say to anyone who's listening is that is where we are in reality. Of all us little human beings on this planet, the Bradis Nation is now kind of becoming aware of this provision that we don't have to take this anymore.
Maybe that post-election trauma will get it done.
I was hoping that, but the beauty is, I guess, I don't own any guns. My brother's a hunter and everything. He's full on, Trumpville and everything. But the reason we're still here is because this nation is a nation of gun owners, and they would have already done something if they could have.
Yeah, fascinating. All right, buddy. Thanks for that wrap up. Let's get into the Hopi stuff.
Yeah. All right, the Hopi stuff. The Hopi stuff.
You sent me an article which talks about them going to the UN in the late 60s,
Right.
I think,
and
talking about they're worried about war and all that. But I mean, we read a fantastic Hopi prophecy when we did that Australian Uluru, and I mean it was kind of scary actually. How prescient it was. Just that what they were saying about how we need to get our shit together, basically.
Right. Okay. All right. So the Hopi thing. Okay. So the Hopi, their cosmology is unique in that they have said from the very beginning what their God told them. And I've hung out with the Hopi on this Mesa a couple times, partied with them. The fun thing, I Volvo wagon and drive from the Mesa down to Winslow, get stoned, drink all the way down, and get stoned and drink all the way back. I look at the beautiful landscape, listen to music. And they showed, I saw, their cornfields, traditional cornfields, and the wells and stuff. And I want to say this because I want to preface anything that I say about the Hopi. And that is that I've been all across America, the 48 states, every state except Alaska, as I mentioned, 5-6 times a piece. And I've been running around talking about the Article 5 stuff. And what I found out is that Americans don't even know their own culture. They don't even know what the truth of the matter is. When I've hung out with the Hopi, those guys are awesome. We had a good time. I hope we can get to see Desmond and the Sun Chief there again. I've been meaning to go out there again. But what I came to realize hanging out with the Hopi is the Hopi don't even know their real culture anymore, based on stuff that has been written back at 1901, 1910, even the 1960s. There's stuff that living Hopis today, if you tried to say something to them about it, it would just, they could, just like Americans can't process that a convention is not dangerous. It's why we're here. So I just want to say that I of course have my own opinions based on my experience, and I'll be keen to say that it's an opinion, but to start out the Hopi stuff, the Hopi cosmology is the story about what their God told them, and the cosmology is this: that there's Dawa, and he created his nephew, Sotuknang. And Sotuknang woke up and he said, "Who am I and why am I here?" And he said, "You're my nephew. I want you to go create 7 universes for me and the future." So he goes out, creates 7 universes, comes back, and says, "Here, how did I do?" He's like, so Val was like, "You did a great job. Awesome. Now I want you to go find Spider-Woman and create life." All right. So we get to this thing. Now, of the 7 universes that were created, we've already been through, according to the Hopi, we've already been through 3 of them. So we've already had 3 previous civilizations. You guys know there's plenty of evidence for this, right? There's all kinds of forbidden knowledge, all those. What's that guy's name who did forbidden archaeology? I forget his name.
Cremo?
Michael Cremo.
You haven't? Yeah, right. Yeah, Michael Cremo. And so all this has been done. There's been previous civilizations. When the Hopi, at the end of each civilization, it was because humans got debauched. They got mockingbirded by someone. One it was like a turquoise woman or something. I actually shouldn't be saying that kind of. But it was there was the people got misled by different. It was this woman who was just insanely beautiful, and she had a beautiful voice, and everyone just did whatever she said, and that was the end of one of the civilizations. But there's been 3 of them that have been human civilizations become debauched.
So debauch as in debauchery kind of thing, or debauch?
As in we were not remaining conscious that the sun is the dad and the earth is the mom, and we shouldn't denigrate them at all. We shouldn't despoil them at all. We should treat them well. We don't have to treat the sun. The sun treats us how the sun.
Well, we can block it for sure.
Well, the sun, as you know, is I think you can fit 1 million Earths inside the sun. So the sun, and according to the Hopi, one of the civilizations ended by fire, and that correlates and matches up with the Tibetans, who in their cosmology, one of the worlds also ended by fire. And in scientific terms, of course, that's a solar flare. If the sun conscious, you guys have heard of Rupert Sheldrake, right?
Yeah.
Rupert Sheldrake, you guys heard of that guy?
Yeah.
And he's got the paper is the sun conscious. That every self-organized entity has some vibrational level and everything. So if the sun's conscious, the sun could say, "No, it's time to hit the reset button on the humans. They're out of control." If that's relational. And then also there's been a pole shift, right? So that's the Earth saying, "No, we're going to hit the reset button."
So some of the Hopi stuff seems to match some of the, as far as the pole shift goes too, some of the sort of the Norse mythologies or the Hyperborea type stuff, or even the Vedas, and they talked about that happening, I think. So it seems to match other mythologies.
So
yeah.
This is what's so insanely beautiful about the Hopi. Everything they say, everywhere else around the globe says, "Well, that's what the Hopi were." So that's why the Hopi are and we'll talk about it. So I got all right. So one thing I did want to mention that I didn't mention is that when human beings are created, human beings, according to Hopi cosmology were created for two things: to create joyful sounds and joyful movements. That's why we're here. That's what we're meant to do. Free of charge, right? Tesla already got us free energy, fair and square. But anyway, so that's so according to the Hopi, that's why we're here. So anyone ever ask you why we're here? Tell them, according to the Hopi, we're here to make joyful sounds and joyful movements. So anyway, so three civilizations end, right? And now at the end of each civilization, either one of the brothers who attend to the poles, or Spider Woman, I forget, but they find the Hopis who are still doing the Hopi way of life. They lead them to the ant people. They go in underground. Then the earth goes through its catastrophe, and then the people, the righteous people, are let back out onto the earth to try again.
Wow.
And so that all kind of points to inner Earth stuff. You know, the ant people. All that. I mean, I don't have any evidence of that myself, and I'll just say, you know, I've never seen a UFO. I've never seen an alien. I've never seen a ghost. So I'm still very, you know, empiricist minded. But we've heard a lot of stuff, a lot of myth, a lot of stories that there is underground stuff. This connects to the Hopi cosmology, that the righteous that are right. So now it's the end of the third world, and now we're going to move into the fourth world, and that's the world we're in now. We're, according to the Hopi, we are now at the end of the fourth world, because this was the prophecy that the elders were given, that when the gourd of ashes is dropped on Mother Earth, the elders alive at that time were to go to the house of glass, the house of mica. To them, mica is a mineral that's like glass. They were supposed to go to the house of glass on the eastern shore and address the leaders of the nations, that if they didn't become peaceable and blend with the land, they would cause a catastrophe, right? So when the atom bomb was dropped on Japan, the Hopi elders alive at that time, in what was it, 1940 something? The Hopi elders alive in Arizona at that time said, well, that's the gourd of ashes.
Okay.
And the UN building is the house of glass. And now we're going to carry out our prophecy, our instructions from our God, and we're going to now we're going to try 4 times. We're going to go try and address the leaders of the nations and tell them, if they don't become peaceable and blend with the land, you're going to cause a catastrophe. And so the link or the text I sent you, I hope you can put that up for folks. It's from a 1953 Wall Street Journal editorial making fun of Hopi elders trying to address the General Assembly and bring their message. Now, they did fulfill their instructions. They did go 4 times to the UN, and then it was the 90s, and like a couple of the last Hopi elders who really knew everything, you know, to the extent that perhaps needed to be known, they passed away. I think Thomas Bianca, and I'm not sure if I have the pronunciation of his last name correct, but he was one of the last elders, and I think he passed in 2001. So, but in the prophecies, also the stuff that their God told them, they said, oh, this is a really neat part. I'm glad I remember this. When they came out of the ground into the fourth world, they said they were told to go find their God. They found their God, and their God said, okay, you guys have to now do 4 migrations around this hemisphere. And after you're done with 4 migrations, come back here and meet me. So the different clans with different ways, and those migrations, according to science, is actually the origin of all the red people, from Tierra del Fuego to the Arctic. The Hopi seeded this hemisphere, and so they did that. They did as instructed, and they came back to the Four Corners area, northeastern Arizona, and their God told them. They said, "Okay, here's how you're going to live. Here's how you plant corn. Here's how you do it. Here's the springs on these mesas that we've picked out for you and stuff. And here's how you build rock apartments and live in. You're going to live here for a couple thousand years, just like this, just like we told you. You're going to have everything you need. It's going to be paradise. But after a while, these people are going to show up. These assholes are going to show up, and they're going to call themselves Navajo. But you be nice to them, give them some of your land, and coexist." Now, after the Navajo show up, a couple thousand years after that, these other assholes are going to show up. And they're going to be white dudes. But you be good, you coexist and stuff, and you live for that day when the gourd of ashes drops so that the elders alive then can carry out the instructions. So here we have a situation where the cosmology of a people have a God telling them all this stuff that's going to happen that has already come to pass and everything. And all this stuff that, in the prophecies, like there's going to be chariots in the sky, there's going to be spider webs across the land, communication. They describe all this stuff, and even some of the esoteric stuff, which is one bit that I remember reading somewhere obscure. I'm trying to remember where that was.
Is there somewhere that's collating a lot of this stuff that if people want to go deeper into the Hopi prophecies and all this? I mean, it sounds fascinating with the spider web, the internet. Basically, they predicted the internet.
Right. Basically, because of the deleterious effects of corporate America, it's just been all splintering. Every day I was, and that I'm even here really is, because I've that I'm here is, that I have this composite of information really is kind of, I occasionally I reflect on it and I go, who the fuck are you? But anyways, I have dug for that, for years because ultimately, actually, I'll answer that question if you'll allow it. I'm a poet. That's where I grew up as. I was, I was always painting and drawing as a child, like as most artists. But at age 10, I wrote a poem, and I was like, oh, my God, dude, you're a poet, right? And then I chased the literary life for 40 years. But all that literary stuff was really the poet, and the poet has to know the truth, because how is he going to write the raddest poem ever, right? How's he going to raise consciousness? So as a poet, which is a real thing, which I am, right. But so I'm this guy who's always been digging for the truth. When I ran into the Hopi, I'm like, oh my God, this is tying together all kinds of stuff, right? And Article 5 and all this. But the Hopi stuff, what's really interesting is that their God told them some white dudes, some assholes were going to show up in the future. Now, in terms of ancient alien stuff, what that means is that the ancient aliens, they wound up the top over in Europe, right? They spun that all together and everything. Then they got the Western Hemisphere all spinning together for this like grand thing of now they're dropping the atom bomb, and so what I believe my takeaway is that the sun and the earth are conscious, and they still are holding out hope for us.
Right on.
Fascinating.
It is. I want to learn more. I do.
There you have it.
And yeah, you're going to learn more about yours, I think, right?
I got all sorts of plans.
Yeah.
But I don't know when I'll get to the Hopi.
So did the UN, did that like get through to the UN at all? Like it must have woken up. It must have woken up a few
know.
people. Like
you know, that would be a really neat documentary. Is to try and find those documents. I know they're in there somewhere.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I know that there is somewhere on the internet. I believe there is one of the transcripts of one of the Hopi elders addressing the General Assembly at one of those meetings.
That'd be a great thing to read or narrate or something. You know, I just like a part of history that really is sort of interesting and just hidden there. You know, nobody's really talking about it because it must have woken up some people. I mean,
Must have.
You know. Because that was, I feel like that was before the UN was fully corrupted into what it is now.
Nah, it's always been corrupt.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I don't. My sense is that it's that there's flux, you know, and yes, the facts are, you know, if you look at all the facts, if you look at, the Berne treaties in, the Bank of London and the Bank of International Settlements and all that, then you say, no, they've always had it in hand. The bad guys have always had it in hand. But why are they letting us talk about a convention, right? Why'd they let us go through 20 years of building this thing up and everything? And that's there. One of the reasons I know a lot about the Hopi is because, I published a novel in 2006, and I published a translation of Shakespeare, and so after I did those, I said, I am never fucking writing a book ever again. You can fucking get me to do it. No way. It's the gnarliest thing you could ever do. And 4 years ago, this new book started knocking on the door, saying, "Hi, we're your new book." And then so I have 4 years of work into this new book, and part of that work is the guy who wrote the Book of the Hopi, a guy named Frank Waters. He passed away, but his wife has held on to the Frank Waters Foundation in Arroyo Seco, New Mexico. And so when I was getting into the Hopi stuff, I'm like, okay, man, in this novel, you're going to tell all this Hopi stuff. And so when I was doing a little research, I found out, oh my God, the Frank Waters Foundation. So I contacted her, talked with her, and I was writer in residence at Frank Waters' house in Arroyo Seco, this adobe house that he got. And that turned into a whole nother chapter. It's a gnarly chapter. But I lived out there, and his wife, who right now I'm forgetting her name, Barbara. Barbara ended up in the hospital while I was there at the residence, and so they wanted me to stay in the house with the dogs and stuff. And one night I'm looking at the bookshelf and everything, and I found this is Frank Waters' house. And he actually has, besides the Book of the Hopi, he also has a book called Pumpkin Seed Point, which is about the 3 years that he lived with the Hopi to try and get all their cosmology together.
Wow. So are you, when is this?
So I'm living in, so I'm there and I'm hanging out, and I found under the bookshelf the Eagle's Cry, which was the newspaper. It was the Hopi newspaper. There's a stack of the Eagle's Cry from this period where the tribal council was going nuts of all the traditionals were saying, no, come on, we got to stay with our, with what we know. And then all the other people say, no, let's become Christians and, drive Ford pickups. There was all that stuff that was there, recorded in the newspaper and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. There might be a bullshit tomorrow. The Yosemite might blow up. The Earth and Sun could say, yeah, it's time to hit the reset button.
So when are you going to come up with this book then?
I have a little writing cave out in the desert that I drive to, and I just got a really good. I sell color field art. So like contemporary stuff. Stuff like this right here. So this is an oil painting on board, stuff like that. I got color field stuff. So I sell it. There's a lot of upscale foot traffic here in the arts district. So I sell all that kind of stuff. And I just had a really good sale on Memorial Day weekend. Some hotelier bought 60 pieces.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm just like, all right, you got some dough, you got your car put together, go right. So in answer to your question, dude, I got to finish the novel. Right? Part of me is like, no, pretty pictures and have fun all day, right? Which I want to do, but no, I am going to finish it. And after this last sale, earlier this spring, I went out to the writing cave and I crushed this one chapter where if you've ever written a book, especially a novel, you have all this raw material, right? This file has got all this raw material, and it's all there, but you got to arrange it, you got to crunch it all, you got to hammer it all together into this something. And so it was a big chapter, and I got that finished, and the Hopi chapter is 2/3 finished, and so I will. I would like to have a rough draft by the end of this year, hopefully.
Let us know when it comes. Let us know when you get there.
Yeah.
Graham will narrate it for you.
I'll narrate it for you. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, I heard you guys mention that you guys got a whole bunch of titles that you want to put on books on tape.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm totally down with that. So after I finish the novel, and I did recording for the blind and dyslexic here in Santa Barbara. I did it for like 5 years. I'd go in and read books.
Nice. Great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Right on, buddy. Well, thanks for coming on again. It's fascinating chat.
You guys, I mean, I can't tell you how really this was really cathartic for me, because it's I got to put all that stuff together into one talk, and I had not done that before, and it felt really good. So
awesome.
I really appreciate it so much.
Awesome, buddy. Thanks. Keep in touch.
Totally. Thanks, John. Good luck with the convention.
Yeah. Well, if anyone wants to jump in there, they can. If there's any late developments or something you want to, bring me back on for an update, I'm always happy to do that. And if not, I'll contact you as soon as I got the book together.
Right on, buddy. I'll put all the links to all that stuff in the show notes for people so they can find you.
Yeah, and the Sir Bacon guy, I'll send you his number.
Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Thanks, buddy.
All right,
Thanks
John.
so much, guys.
See ya.
Enjoy California.
Yeah.
And that was our chat with John DeHerrera. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah. Wow, it was a roller coaster.
Roller coaster whirlwind.
Sorry about the internet. I was gonna say turn off your video, but it was just so nice to look at him when he's talking. I thought,
you like
it's
him,
kind of
man?
a selfish thing, but but we should.
The show is a selfish
I should have probably just said, just turn off your video so the internet stays better. But it's good to just have that interaction back and forth,
Yeah.
It is different when you're just doing audio only. I don't like it as much.
Dude, you were just complaining before
That's
the show.
other people. This is our own personal video with
Okay.
him. I knew you were going to bring that up. I thought you might be fascinated with the book writing and the Hopi stuff. And I mean, even the Article 5 seems important. And the Francis Bacon, I think I'm onto something. I think that Francis Bacon was divinely
We'll have a revenge in Seattle.
He was divinely conceived. He was he should be like with Jesus and Buddha and all these other people that are actually like Immaculate Conception. We're doing a show next week on that book. It'll be fascinating. I'm really enjoying the book.
I bet.
So we'll see if Queen Elizabeth comes up in her analysis.
Or goes down. Big thanks. Big thanks to John for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Even bigger thanks if you're a supporter of the show. Of course, this show is 100% value for value. No ads, no affiliates, none of that stuff. So if you can, when you can, head over to grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly. Make a one-time donation. Whatever you can do to help us keep rolling around here. Keep the lights on. Keep a roof over Graham's head. Everyone's head. My head, too, I guess, to a certain extent.
Adultbrain.ca.
The Secret Teachings of All Ages should come live anytime, but the Secret Doctrine #1 still there, still popping. Adultbrain.ca to get those audio books. GrammaticOutlawed.ca for the other podcast, the 2-hour show, if you remember. Grammatica.ca/chats. Just head over to the show notes. There's a bunch of stuff in the show notes that you can do. It'll take you to every place. #1, support. We can't do this without you. We love you. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
I sat on the wall. I could see it all. Trickery was afoot, and evil was at its root. The people were scatterplots, not many could connect the dots. Some people stood tall, in spite of their righteous voices made small. Put down your phone, your soul's turned to stone. The rhythm of the algorithm has driven a schism, created this prison. I'm shocked and appalled at the technocracy's gone, pulling strings of marionettes, setting traps in cybernets. Infinite scroll as addictive as cigarettes. Cat videos for freedom of the press. People that stand tall, in spite of our righteous voices made small. Put down your phone, your soul's turned to stone. The rhythm of the algorithm has driven a schism, created this prison. Double click uninstall. Rome's about to fall. This hard drive is corrupted, and our minds have been abducted by a silicon dream so seductive. When yelling at bots becomes unproductive, people, we need to stand tall, in spite of our righteous voices made small. Put down your phone, your soul's turned to stone. The rhythm of the algorithm has driven a schism, created this prison.